Hi there, I'm Lauren from Go for Growth, and today I'm going to be running through part 3 of the application for North Yorkshire County Council's approved provider list for health and adult services. So part 3 covers the selection questions, and the selection questions are split over 5 sections, which are section 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So we're going to come to section 4, as you can see here first, which covers economic and financial standing. Before we do get started, it is important to read over the provider guidance for this section. What you are advised in the provider guidance, which is detailed in this green box here, is you're advised what the information you provide will be used for and the threshold for the whole of section 4. Now the threshold reads that, the threshold is for section 4 is that the authority is happy with your organisation's financial stability. Now the provider information also confirms that the organisation expected to enter into the contract with the council, so the lead organisation, will be subject to the economic and financial standing evaluation. There is some further guidance below for providers who will be relying on the economic and financial standing of a parent company, and also some further information on how the authority will assess the information that you provide. So once you've read over the provider guidance, then you can move on to look at completing section 4.1. You can see this is a yes or no question, this first question which I'm hovering over now. If you are unable to submit the accounts as requested in that first question, there is a note provided here advising that if you don't have these audited accounts, you can submit one of the following, so that's A, B or C. There is also a note there that explains if you don't provide any of the requested information, that the council will be unable to approve your application, meaning that your application will be rejected. So once you have completed section 4.1 then, we can move down, which will take us straight to section 5. So section 5 then asks, if you indicated back in the selection questionnaire question 1.2 that you are part of a wider group, please provide further details below. So if this doesn't ring a bell, it is because this will have been completed back in the part 1 of the application video. I will attach a link to the part 1 video in the below description, so you can just remind yourself of what question 1.2 was. But just a quick overview, you will have been asked to confirm whether you are part of a wider group. If you did answer yes, so if you are part of a wider group, here is where you will name the organisation that you are a part of. That will cover section 5. Section 5.1, you've asked whether you are able to provide parent company accounts if requested to do so at a later stage. You'll indicate either yes or no here. 5.2 explains that if you answered yes to 5.1, would the parent company be willing to provide a guarantee if necessary? 5.3 is advising, if not, would you be able to obtain a guarantee elsewhere? So, for example, from a bank. So answer those 3 questions if you indicated that you are part of a wider group back in question 1.2, as we said, as detailed in the part 1 video. Moving over onto section 6 then, so this is the technical and professional ability section. So this is where you'll provide details of a contract that you currently provide to a local authority. Now it needs to be relevant to the approved provider list that you are applying for, meaning as well that if you are applying for more than one of the approved provider lists, you may need to provide more than one referee. And this can be used, done using a separate sheet using the numbering format indicated. Now, if your organisation has never actually held a contract with your local authority, you can provide details of a contract that you do provide to another organisation, but it must still be relevant to the requirements of the application of your application. To actually meet the threshold for this section, then you will need to confirm that the authority can contact the referees you provide below and that the references received are then satisfactory. Now, an unsatisfactory reference may lead to your organisation being excluded from the application shortlist, so it is really important. So you'll need to provide then details of the customer, so details of the organisation you've provided to, and contact details for a member within the organisation. So the contact provided should be prepared to provide written evidence confirming the accuracy of the information that you do provide in this section. So do make note of that. Once you have completed 6.1, that takes you onto page 16. You will see there is a 6.2. Now 6.2 is there if you are unable to provide a reference for any reason. So for example, if you are a startup organisation, so you've never provided a contract before, 6.2 is where you'll make that explanation, but in no more than 500 words. So once you're happy with 6.1, and if you did need to answer 6.2, we can move over on to section 7 of the application, which covers the Modern Slavery Act 2015. So in this section then, you will first need to confirm whether your organisation classes as a commercial organisation, and that's as defined by section 54 of the Modern Slavery Act 2015. If you do answer no to this question, you can move on to section 8 of the application now. However, if you do answer yes, there are there's a little bit more information you will need to provide here. So it's confirming whether it's in section 7.2, and it confirms whether you are compliant with the annual reporting requirement contained within section 54 of the 2015 Act. You need to confirm whether you are or are not. If you are, you'll need to provide the relevant URL for that. However, if you are not, you'll need to provide an explanation as to why you're not. So the next section to complete then is section 8, that is the additional questions. Now section 8 again has been split up into a number of different steps. The first being 8.1, which covers insurance, as you can see here. So just looking at the note to providers here, it is important to note if your organisation is unable to commit to obtaining and maintaining the required insurance levels, that your application will be disqualified. And also again important to note that there is a form described in section 8.1e. This must be completed upon your submission, or again your application will be disqualified. Just move down so you can see section 8.1 in full. Now once you've completed section 8.1 in full, you can move over on to the next step, which is 8.2. Section 8.2 covers health and safety. So in this section, you are reminded that employers with more than 5 employees are obliged to have health and safety policy that is signed, dated and updated regularly. Now you'll next answer questions relating to your organisation's health and safety policy itself before you can move over on to section 8.3. So I would read this green information bar in full before completing section 8.2. Answer these questions below before moving on to 8.3, which covers staffing. So I will note that for this section then, the green boxes, if you do have a read over these, what it's explaining is basically that if you answer no to any of the questions outlined in 8.3, the authority will not be able to approve your application. So have a good read over of those, but if you do answer no to any of these 3, as I say, the authority will be unable to approve your application. Okay, so moving on to the next section then, so section 8.4, which covers compliance with equality legislation. Just before I do get started on this section, there is a note here to providers that are working outside of the UK, just advising you to refer to the equivalent legislation in the country in which you are located. So the first 2 questions then are covering any findings of unlawful discrimination or any complaints that have been upheld following investigation in the last 3 years. That's section A and B. Section C, or question C, covers if you've answered yes to either question A or question B. You'll be asked to provide details of the nature of the investigation and explanation of the outcome, There is a note for question C as well, that if you are unable to demonstrate that the appropriate remedial action has been taken to prevent similar unlawful discrimination, then the council would be unable to complete your application. Similarly, with question D, there is another note to providers advising that if your answer is going to be no to question D, again, the council will be unable to complete your application. So that's regarding subcontractors and whether you do have processes in place to check whether any of the circumstances you'd answered above regarding your own organisation applies to your subcontractors. So once you are happy with your answers there, then we can move on to section 8.5. Now, section 8.5 is the quality section. So this section will only actually need to be completed if you are applying for the nursing and residential, home-based support or supported living approved provider lists. So unless you are applying for any of those just mentioned, you will move on to the next section in the application. So with this part of the application only being applicable to certain approved provider lists, I am going to leave this out of the recording and offer one-to-one support on this section. So for section 8.5, like I said, the equality section, if you are needing any support here, please do contact myself. That will be on lauren@goforgrowth.co.uk. I will leave my email address in the description of the video and my contact number. So like I say, any questions on the 8.5 section, please do get in contact. 8.5 is the last section of the selection questions. So this will be the end of the recording. The remainder of the application will be covered in a separate video. Thank you very much for watching.